Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Sarah Wong. Let's take a look at our top stories tonight. John Lee focuses on housing in his election manifesto and calls for unity. A man is arrested after the body of a woman is found on a trolley. And Russia pounds Ukraine's capital with missiles as the United Nations chief visits the city. Housing and livelihood issues were among the priorities outlined in a manifesto of John Lee, Hong Kong's sole chief executive candidate. Lee urged the city to come together when he unveiled his platform just 10 days before election committee members vote. Joanna Ho reports.
John Lee, the only chief executive candidate, invited around 300 people to his manifesto briefing today at the Convention and Exhibition Center this morning. The guests included grassroots members of the public and representatives of different districts and sectors. Lee listed 4 tenets: strengthening governance and dealing with livelihood issues, tackling the housing problem, boosting competitiveness, and developing a caring and inclusive society. He reiterated his results-oriented approach by setting goals using key performance indicators. His priorities include land and housing. John Lee proposed shortening the time for public housing applicants to move into their homes by at least a year. To meet the goal, he plans to set up 2 new teams to supervise land reclamation and construction to shorten the building supply lead time. Some hot issues, such as the environment, were not mentioned in his platform, but Lee pledged to get round to them.
If I'm elected, of course, I will be telling everybody comprehensively what I intend to do in my policy address.
When asked about COVID measures, Lee said he will adopt a strategy based on risk levels.
If there are businesses which actually can operate with a very low risk in regard to the control of the pandemic, then they can be treated separately from other sectors which may have a higher risk.
Lee vowed to tackle poverty by providing training and mentorship schemes, especially for youths. He stressed his goal of connecting with the mainland by helping young Hong Kongers to secure better employment opportunities there. And he appealed for unity to solve problems and open a new chapter in Hong Kong's history. Lee's manifesto was unveiled just days before the approximately 1,500 members of the election committee gather on May 8th to pick the successor to Carrie Lam, whose single term as chief executive ends on June 30th. Joanna Ho, HKIBC.
John Lee's manifesto triggered mixed reactions from lawmakers. Some were enthusiastic, while others hoped for concrete and new ideas to solve the city's problems. Johanna Chen reports.
The technology sector legislator was excited that John Lee spoke about research and development, or R&D, and the push for local products.
He mentioned a big part about R&D and R&D commercialization and method we can do to match the research and the commercialization area, including private investor. I think that's a very important message. But definitely, how to do? I believe definitely we have to discuss and follow up on what action item we have to include in future.
Others were more focused on poverty and livelihood issues.
I have actually reached out to him personally and said the key issue about cross-generation poverty is in education. So therefore, the biggest problem with alleviating cross-generation poverty is to improve the English level of grassroots students so that they can have a fair chance of getting university together with the others. That's not happening now.
Tian added he hopes Lee could speed up the creation of a railway crossing in the Lantau Tomorrow Vision Plan, so that people who move to the proposed artificial island can get to work by rail without having to wait for it to be built in 8 years. Not everyone was satisfied with Lee's manifesto. Third side's Taek Chi-yoon was disappointed that there was no mention of democratic development. He said most of Lee's ideas were based on plans from the current administration, adding that although the candidate pledged to be results-oriented, he did not give concrete timetables. Johanna Chan, HKIBC.
An early morning jogger had the fright of her life when she saw a leg sticking out of a trolley in Tianshui. Police were alerted and a 25-year-old man was detained on suspicion of killing his girlfriend. Macy Mock reports.
A residential security camera captured this grisly scene early this morning. A man was seen pushing and dragging a trolley on Tianha Road in Tianshui before pausing in front of a railing. This jogger said she saw a leg sticking out of the trolley and told her husband to call police. She believed the man had stopped at the railing because he had trouble pushing the carts. Police arrived at the scene shortly after 6 a.m. and paramedics declared the woman dead. She was in her 20s and was believed to be the girlfriend of the suspect. Police said her head was covered with cling film. Officers arrested the suspect at the scene and found a bloodstain on a nearby bicycle track in their search for clues. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
The long-delayed cross-harbor section of the MTR's East Rail line will open on May 15th, according to sources. This will connect Hongham Station with Admiralty with a new exhibition center station in between. It comes less than a year after the MTR Corporation last opened a new section. That was the Kai Tak to Hongham section of the Twin Ma line in June last year. The government is lifting the red outbound travel alert for all territories from Sunday. The warning has been in place for over 2 years because of COVID, but officials say the risk of contracting the virus overseas is now lower. However, the head of the communicable disease branch, Chang Shuk-kwan, urged people to avoid non-essential travel. And from Sunday, Hong Kong-based cabin crew members would only have to quarantine for 3 days in a hotel on their return. Cargo cabin crew will be exempted from quarantine. Meanwhile, new COVID cases in Hong Kong have continued to decline, with 366 infections recorded today, along with 11 deaths. New COVID cases and virus-related deaths have risen again in Shanghai, and an outbreak in Beijing has led to more venue closures in the capital, as officials reiterated their determination to stick with the dynamic zero approach. Wong reports.
The mainland added 15,600 new cases yesterday. That included 15,000 in Shanghai, ending a 5-day decline in the financial hub. The death toll shot up to 52, 10 more than on Wednesday. But with over 12 million people now considered to be in lower-risk areas and, in principle, allowed to leave their homes, authorities insist things are improving. According to Shanghai's Health Commission Deputy Director Zhao Dandan, the number of people in the sealed and controlled zones has clearly fallen. Meanwhile, a brewing outbreak in the capital, Beijing, has led to more places, including malls, gyms, cinemas, and libraries, being sealed off. Officials also told schools to shut from today. The capital recorded 49 new cases today.
坚持动态清零，不犹豫，不动摇。
According to National Health Commission Vice Minister Li Bin, the country will continue to adhere to the dynamic zero policy without waiver or hesitation. He said the cost would be too high to coexist with the virus in hopes of gaining herd immunity, since China is a large country with vastly different levels of development across regions. He added that as there's not enough medical resources and their allocation is unbalanced, people with underlying diseases, the elderly, and children would be in danger. Wong, HKIBC.
Russian missiles have rained down on the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv, as the United Nations chief visited the city. Ukraine called for a powerful response amid warnings by NATO that a conflict could last for years. Plumes of black smoke billowed from several buildings as Russia renewed its bombardment of the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv. Firefighters and soldiers rushed to douse the flames and rescue residents. The attack coincided with a visit to Kyiv by United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres, who met President Volodymyr Zelensky. Guterres pressed for a ceasefire after touring destroyed Ukrainian cities, including Bucha, where Russian troops are accused of killing civilians deliberately.
The Security Council failed to do everything in its power to prevent and end this war. And this is a source of great disappointment, frustration, and anger. We will not give up. As we keep pushing for a full-scale ceasefire, we will also keep striving for immediate practical steps to save lives and reduce human suffering.
Zelensky took the opportunity of the UN chief's visit to call for a powerful response to Russia's missile strikes. The Ukrainian leader accused Moscow of disregarding UN authority and the values that the international body stands for. The West, meanwhile, continued to arm Ukraine, with the White House proposing a record $33 billion military aid package. But even with Western help, NATO has warned that the conflict could last for years, with devastating economic and geopolitical consequences. At least 9 people have been killed and 13 others injured in back-to-back explosions in Afghanistan's 4th largest city. This is one of the 2 vehicles that were destroyed by the blast in the northern city of Mazar-e-Sharif, the capital of Balkh province. They happened just minutes apart from each other. Police believe the attackers were targeting Shia passengers inside the vehicles. The Islamic State terrorist group claimed responsibility. The attacks were the latest in a spate of bombings by the group this month, including one that killed 12 people in a Shia mosque in Mazar-e-Sharif last week. Hong Kong and mainland stock markets have risen by the most in 6 weeks on encouraging news from Beijing. The Hang Seng Index jumped 4%, with tech stocks leading the charge. This followed reports that Beijing is ending its regulatory crackdown on the sector, with a symposium arranged for the big tech firms after the Labor Day holiday. Alibaba led tech heavyweights higher, surging 15.7%. Meituan gained 15.5%, while Tencent was 11% higher. Mainland stock indices advanced after the Politburo vowed to stabilize the economy. The yen has dropped to a 20-year low against the US dollar as the Bank of Japan stuck to its low interest rate policy. The decision, which came as other Western central banks are raising rates, pushed the Japanese currency to as low as 131 to the greenback. In contrast, the US dollar hit a 20-year high on rising American rates and concerns about economic growth in Europe and China. The euro continued to retreat, with the war in Ukraine adding more pressure on the unit used in 19 European Union countries. The yuan rose today, but the Chinese currency is poised to record its biggest monthly drop in 28 years. Now let's take a look at the markets. The Hang Seng Index closed up 813 points. Top 10 active stocks: Tencent up $37.60, Meituan up $23.10, and Alibaba up $13.85. Tragafund up 84 cents, AIA down 15 cents, and CNOOC up 38 cents. Forex trading against Hong Kong dollar, euro is trading at 8.27, British pound at 9.85, and Australian dollar 5.62. Over to the UK market, FTSE 100 is up almost 27 points. On to the weather now. Tomorrow will be mainly cloudy with a few isolated showers. Temperatures range between 26 and 30 degrees. We'll see a drop in temperature and rainy weather on Sunday and Monday. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Friday night. Join us for more updates at 11. I'm Sarah Wong. Please stay safe and take care.